You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello, and welcome to episode 326 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined by the usual cast of goofiness, Seth Miller, Fosma Moon. How you doing, guys?
Good. I like how we've gone from characters to goofiness now.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are characters sometimes. Now you're just goofy.
We're just going further and further down the rat hole.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, does one of us become Donald Duck?
Quack?
As long as it's not Donald Trump. Anyway.
Bada bing.
So, some follow-up from the last show. We talked about Luanda service and, TAG Airlines. And Delta actually proposed service to Luanda back in 2011 when it was doing all the
like the Dakar hub or the...
Yeah.
Right, it was Dakar, I think they used. Yeah,
it was the scissor hub in Dakar.
So, anyway, yeah, there was, in fact, but we don't know if they ever operated it. I still can't figure out which of those, right? That was like the Delta proposed a ton and then didn't do all of it, so...
I think they only did, like, 2 routes out of there.
Yeah, so, anyway, some fun Luanda.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Well, I think what we should really start off the show with, is the fact that, Seth, you drove for a work trip for the first time ever.
So, first time where a flight was available, and I chose to drive.
Okay, explain this to us.
I had the option to fly, and, looked at the flight schedules. I had to go to central New Jersey, not far from Newark, about 20 minutes outside of the airport. From Boston, that's an easy flight, and for me, getting to Boston is relatively easy, and it's normally how I go. And I finally started looking at, schedules and stuff to figure out how I was going to do it, and it turns out that the schedules have been cut so much. It was shocking to me. It was actually enough to make me go check the history. And so a year ago, Boston to Newark had 105 flights for the week, 15 a day. Last week or 2 weeks ago now, when I had to take the trip, it was 16 for the whole week. 2 a day on United and 2 a week on JetBlue.
Wow.
2 a week or 2 a day?
2 a day on United.
Okay, 2 a week.
On average, and JetBlue had like a Thursday and a Monday or something like that. Round trip, one each.
For the leisure crowd or the consulting crowd? I'm trying to figure out.
I have no idea. It clearly didn't work for me as the consulting crowd, but I'm a different kind of consultant, so who the hell knows? I was shocked at how much the service was cut, and then drove 900 miles in 3 days, which is not something I really want to do again. And especially the part where I was 2/3 of the way home and got a phone call that network cable that was supposed to be plugged in probably wasn't. And it was amusing. I pulled over on the side of the road and was like in a rest area taking some calls and, using my modem tethered, whatever, blah, 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 doing the work, and couldn't get in touch with someone to tell me if something was really broken or not. It's like, fine, I'll just go home and figure it out from there. And then like 5 minutes later, after I pulled back on the highway, my phone rang. I'm like, shit, okay, it was the person who could help me. And so I immediately was like, okay, hang on a second. I saw there was like a way station or something that was closed, but I pulled it off into the exit of the way station and just like, left myself enough runway of exit ramp that I could get back up to speed when I needed to merge back into the highway, but pulled off on the side of the road, turned on my hazards and started taking my phone call. And so I'm sitting there like with the laptop in the passenger seat and like trying to work and figure this out and talking to the guy and doing a FaceTime call to have this guy who's definitely not a networking engineer walk around a server room. And I'm like, hey, do you see lights on this jack? No, the black one under the blue one. No lights, huh? Anyway, we got it solved, so that's the good part of the story. But halfway through the call, all of a sudden, like, and I didn't notice him because I wasn't paying attention, like, I hear a thump on my window, and it was one of the, like, highway emergency roadside assistance people from the state of Massachusetts walked up, knocked on my window, like, son, you okay in here? Obviously, I didn't have a southern accent. I don't know where that came from. But
yeah, you got to do that like in a thick Rhode Island or Massachusetts accent.
Yeah, which I can't do. You can't park your car and have it. Yeah, I don't know. You can't park your car here. Like, no, I'm fine. I had to take a phone call and I pulled over so I didn't crash. It's like, okay, and he walked off, but it scared the shit out of me.
You just for a moment you thought you were going to be murdered.
He was a somewhat grizzled old man. It was kind of exciting.
Yeah, so this is just after you came out of Connecticut, I assume?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, no, it was, you come, I forget, 91 merges onto the Mass Pike there. Maybe there's an like a short stub between them, but yeah, basically right there.
Yeah, 91 or 84, depending on which way you're going.
Yeah.
But
anyway, I thought it was interesting how awful the flight schedules were that not quite forced, but pretty much forced me to drive instead. So it was weird.
How'd the Subaru hold up on the road trip?
No, I rented a car.
Oh, okay.
I've done that driving the Subaru before. That was actually almost identical to what we did when we moved up here. We did it from Florida.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Over 4 days, and we did Jacksonville to Charleston, Charleston to Richmond, Richmond to Central Jersey, and then Central Jersey to Dover. So,
wow.
So yeah, it was, and when we did it then, I was like, God, that was a long drive. And then I realized I did it back and forth in the same weekend, this trip, plus the middle day of the trip. I actually, from Central Jersey, had to go all the way up to Teterboro. I drove past the airport, all the way down to King of Prussia, PA, and then back in one day. I drove the length of New Jersey twice. It was terrible.
I don't really understand Northeast geography very well. Like I can look at a map and say that's where New Hampshire is, that's where Vermont is, etc. But like I don't understand the subtleties of Connecticut and everything going on there and everything in Vermont. And I saw some video where they were making fun of Vermont the other day, and it made me laugh because I thought of you, Seth.
Dude, that's a completely different world. It's like 50 miles west of here.
And that's what's so funny. Like people are like, "Oh, Eastern Oregon's so different." I'm like, "Yeah, it's 300 miles away," but you're like, "Yeah, it's 30 minutes for you." So let's talk about the new. Is it Amsterdam Airport or is it a new airport in the Netherlands?
Netherlands, sort of. It's supposed to twin with Amsterdam with Schiphol.
Really?
Well, twin might not be the best way to put it. It was a reliever airport for Schiphol. It's sort of on the other side of town.
Okay.
And way back in the day, at one point, there was discussion about how, like, Hyperloop sort of train between the two could make it a sort of unified airport experience where you could do all the check-in where you could sort of check in at either one and just, transfer between the two super easy and this and that. It was, which was almost certainly never going to happen anyways, but it was fun to listen to people talk about it. But yeah, there's like this extra airport that they've been talking for years about trying to open. And it's probably closer than Rotterdam. I think Rotterdam's not that far away, and is a real airport, or real-ish. It's a very small terminal. But yeah, it is delayed once again. And like they've done proving runs with real planes for noise testing to make sure that, it will meet whatever requirements the regulators have, but who knows? So
it's 32 miles from Schiphol.
Yeah.
And 26 miles from Central Amsterdam. When I think about it, though, like to me, it looks far simply because there's like, a bay between it and Amsterdam. It's definitely.
And we sort of talked about this with Chengdu the other day, though, right?
Yeah,
They exactly. Look way further, but I guess Chengdu had the advantage of being on the high-speed rail line. This doesn't.
Yeah. And I mean, Schiphol. The thing with Schiphol is it's fairly close to Central Amsterdam, right? Like it's you're what 15 minutes. So
I want to say I was having drinks with occasional guest Michael Traeger when like boarding started for my flight. And we were like it wasn't quite boarding, but it was close. I think 2 hours prior to departure, I was still having drinks with him down at a bar near the central station. I was like, oh shit, I gotta go catch my flight. And basically, hopped on a train, walked through security, walked through immigration, walked onto the plane, sat in my seat, and then they closed the door and we left. Maybe it was 90 minutes out, but like you could do it. It was that easy.
You're nuts. It
was by accident. It was like my third gin and tonic.
Yeah, well, I've never had that kind of luck with Schiphol.
At least it wasn't like Eastern Europe and drunk off his ass,
where he doesn't go to bed.
Western Europe and drunk off my ass. It's completely different.
But I mean, Schiphol. I remember one day I had an overnight in Schiphol, and I left. When I have an early morning flight, I always leave my curtains open a little bit. And I set my alarm. I must have slept through it. I wake up and I'm like, oh, why is there daylight outside? I'm like, oh, crap. And I was on the 9:15 flight to Newark, and it was 8:15 at this point.
Yeah.
And I managed to take a quick shower and make my flight. And get through customs.
That's the impressive part.
Here, I just actually found my tweet from this. This is November 22nd, 2015. Flight departed at 5:10 p.m. I boarded the train at 2 minutes to 4. I boarded the train an hour, 12 minutes prior to departure, and I made the flight no problem.
I mean, that's impressive.
That's insane.
Was it Schengen? I'm guessing it was a Schengen flight.
No, I was flying back to the States.
Really?
I had to clear immigration, yeah.
Flying at 5 p.m.
L.A.?
No, the late JFK flight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, arriving on the train through security immigration and onto the plane in 25 minutes. It was not the peak morning departure bank to America, but yeah, no, it was. I remember it being a ridiculously short period of time. So probably 90 minutes out is when I noticed I had to go and like grabbed my stuff, packed up, and left. That was also the time I did literally an overnight. I was out of the States for 26 hours trip to Amsterdam. So
I do feel like that
one of two actually.
I feel like that Newark flight in the morning, Foz, is semi-painful right? Like it is because it leaves at 9:15.
It's the second earliest flight to the States from Europe that United operates, or used to be.
But the advantage to it is you're on the ground before lunchtime.
That's very true. Very true. So back to the topic. Okay. So
Wait, there was a topic?
Wait, what?
Lelystad Airport is the name of the airport. It's out in farm country. I mean, the way it's going now, I don't think so. But just so you guys know, there is an aviation museum at this airport, and now we have to go.
Well, we still haven't made it to the model store next to Schiphol. How are we going? Well, why do you think we're going to make it to this airport?
The one next to, or the one like in the terminal building mall?
The one next to it, the big one, not the one in the building.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. We've put Ireland on the list of places to go. I think we need a side trip to Amsterdam and this airport museum and the model shop. No. Cool. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm putting up plans that I can cancel. That's all I'm doing.
Okay. So I don't need a plan for this.
Wait, you were actually listening to him, Foz? I just assumed he was talking about fitness.
No, I really think we should do it. I'm in a traveling mood at this point. Anywhere. I'll go anywhere.
Wait. Even the Island Hopper?
Hey, you missed my Instagram story about the Island Hopper. I
got it.
I did. I didn't because I didn't tag Foz. I forgot to tag Foz. But yeah, I'm interested in the Island Hopper again. We just can't. My wife has told me that Brian can't come with us.
Was Brian with us last time?
No, but he has a terrible record for getting stuck, just like I do.
I generally don't want to travel with Brian. Period. Just seeing him in the airport is scary enough.
Oh man. So let's move on. Just not. But why is this not going to happen? Right? Like, is it just that it's just delayed and they're saying we'll do it?
I think it's always NIMBYism at some level, right? Someone's always fighting against everything, but especially an airport because they're loud and cause traffic and cause planes to be around. So
yeah, makes sense. The 777X is now delayed to late 2023 at the earliest. Why?
Because Boeing.
Okay, I mean you have to give us more than that.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell how much of it is the plane isn't ready, quote unquote, versus regulation or regulatory approval questions. Right, we have the issue/change in the ODA process, the certification process that was included in the December 2020 Omnibus Spending Act /COVID relief bill that included the complete overhaul of how regulation and certification happens.
In response to the MAX, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, it was a response to that, but generally speaking, yeah. So that's a little bit of a challenge, and no one's quite sure how that's going to play out because the FAA hasn't really implemented it yet. The Department of Transportation, probably. And then there's the whole part where we're in the middle of a global pandemic and no one really expects long-haul travel to recover that quickly. And what does that mean for the airlines that have committed to buying it, which, to be fair, there aren't that many. Several hundred sold back in orders, but, it's also a lot of Middle East carriers that are trying to scale back. And although Singapore Airlines today announced that they're shifting their order book from 787-10s to 777Xs and pushing them out more years. But it's there's a lot sort of going on there. There's a lot of moving parts, but the gist of it is that Emirates said it doesn't expect to take delivery until late 2023, which means it wouldn't be flying probably until early 2024. And this is a plane where they probably specified the seats in 2017, which is crazy. Like Lufthansa, right? Remember Lufthansa announced that whole throne middle seat, and they got the Skytrax bullshit 5-star award as a result because they're going to have it in a couple years, so we may as well just go ahead and give it to them. Yeah.
So has there been any cancellations because of this? Has anyone canceled their orders, or has it just been delayed?
There have been,
pushed out?
right?
Okay.
There have been cancellations, and this is is it specifically because of this or the pandemic or right? But or just airlines generally realizing that they can't survive the environment that they planned. But there have been some cancellations. It's not great news for Boeing, I think, and some of it is unofficial cancellations. Like I want to say there was a report that there's a accounting rule, I think it's 606 or something like that, where if a contract is considered at risk of collection, you're not going to actually collect the money from that contract, you have to declare it. And Boeing moved something like 130 of the 500 or 400 orders into that classification. after their earnings call a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, not great news.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this just a little bit. Like, this is it's supposed to be a great plane. Added capacity, all these things, more fuel efficient, bigger engines, blah blah blah.
More fuel efficient, but also 10 abreast, and. We'll have to see. There wasn't a ton of good news in economy class. Here we go. From the Liam site, I got it. 191 firm orders remain after 118 have now been classified as quote unquote iffy due to accounting rule ASC 606. They went from 17 questionable orders to 135. During their last quarterly report, or annual, I guess, because it's January.
What is Singapore replacing? Are they replacing 77Ws? Is that what they would replace?
By the time they show up, A380s too.
Did they get rid of their 330s yet, or do they still have 330s?
They still have 330s, as far as I know.
Yeah, so it's probably a combination of 330s, 77Ws.
Yeah, I was going to say I think. There's sort of a rotation, a cycle thing that plays into it. Like the 787-10s were regional planes because they were higher density, shorter range. So those are your planes flying to India, to Japan, maybe to Australia, depending on what cabin they want to put in there and which route. And so switch those. You don't 1-to-1 switch those to a 777X because the 777X is such a bigger plane with massively more range, etc. I'd say more seats, but the way they configured it, probably be the same number of seats, just more comfortable. But there's that. So it's also sort of what do they expect the route structure to be in a while.
Yeah. Weird times.
Yeah.
Alitalia, is it dead yet?
Maybe.
No.
Well, sort of. So we've talked about this a little bit before. Like, it's never really going to die, and they're planning to the government's planning to recapitalize it. Invest new money, start over. And I guess a European court has ruled that if they're going to do it, they have to really recapitalize a new airline. They can't just keep all the old and bring it over. And among the things that are in play there is the airline name and brand, because whether you want to believe it or not, brand, the brand name has value, right? I mean, airlines take loans against their brand names these days all the time. So, yeah, it's a super interesting story that they might have. They also, I think they have to divest their ground handling and all the other stuff and, all their other ancillary businesses. So when it relaunches, if this all really comes to pass, it would be a new name.
Air Italy.
That one's already taken.
Italy Air, Italian.
Yeah. Italy Air. It's one of the characters in the Sound of Music, right?
Is it? I don't
know.
No. Canada closing its borders. This is, a little bit old news now that we're recording every other week. But, Canada's pretty much said you got to fly through the major hubs of coming in internationally. But generally the borders are closed, including to U.S. citizens.
Yeah, and especially they announced some road testing and other requirements for land border crossings too. But the super interesting one to me is, sort of the fall on the initial effect was they convinced the airlines to stop flying to the Caribbean and Mexico and Central America, and so Rouge basically just shut down hard, laid off a bunch of people. WestJet is not shutting down, but all of these routes, they're not carrying any passengers southbound anymore. Unlike the U.S., that was okay, well, everybody just needs a test to come home. Canada was we actually would just like you to stop going there. And it seems to be working, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, it was a pretty hard close. And then on top of that, on Tuesday, which is when we're recording this, the 9th, Air Canada announced a bunch more markets would be closing. And LaGuardia and Boston and National, DCA, are all closing. They're just shutting down their stations for days at a time. I think it's through the end of April.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's an interesting situation where there's clearly, for obvious reasons related to the healthcare situation, it makes some sense, but it's interesting to see that given that, the U.S. isn't doing anything near that much. Yeah, Seattle, I guess Fort Myers, who cares as much about that, and Denver are the other airports for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the U.S. Sao Paulo, Bogota, Tokyo, and Dublin are also closing passenger service, although those international, the long-haul routes will keep cargo.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, there for a while, Air Canada was still operating PDX to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I think that just ended recently.
Yeah, and I mean, LaGuardia, they have slots to operate 20-something flights a day. So it's not a small operation, but they had already scaled down to maybe one every other day or something like that, a couple days a week. It was a pretty light capacity, and now they're just throwing in the towel completely.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Crazy. H&A bankruptcy is affecting dozens of airlines, 600 plus planes, plus $9 billion in embezzlement.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
What do we want to talk about first?
I'd like to learn how to steal $9 billion and hide it.
Well, in China, it mostly involves funneling hard currency out of the country, often through casino junkets or sketchy merger and acquisition plans if you're big enough that you can establish a large corporation and start, buying other companies and using the international transactions to move money around.
Starwood.
Yeah, it's clearly sketchy, but a handful of people were arrested as part of this bankruptcy and charged with $9-ish billion worth of embezzlement. So, oopsie.
Is H&A what is it? Hainan, yeah.
And Hong Kong Express, I think, and many others.
I thought didn't Cathay buy Hong Kong Express?
Then it was the other one there. There was another Hong Kong startup airline that was H&A, or they sold.
I think they sold. I think it was Hong Kong Express, but...
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they used to own Swissport. They owned the ground handling company, and they finally sold that back. They actually own Thompson Aero Seating, the folks that make the Vantage and some of the other fancy business class seats. So it's like a 2,500 company holding company. It's insane the number of different things that they're into. But with respect to the airlines, at least the vaguely good news is that they generally own the airlines, or most of them are short-haul operations, are regional, within China, and they're generally owned with the local government. So very few people expect them to fully shut down any of those airlines. Yeah, there's a lot of planes. It's like 500 single-aisle and 100 twin-aisle planes that potentially could be up for lease renewal or lease renegotiation, which these days is a big part of, the lessors are clearly unhappy anyways with the amount of planes that they're dealing with. But anyway, there's been talk for a while now about what's going on there and how the sort of the house of cards was finally going to collapse, and they've been trying to find more money, and now they're no longer trying to find more money, or they're trying to find it differently.
Yeah. Kind of related to China, I'm just looking at Flight Radar today for fun because and I see 3 Air China flights with what look like real flight numbers, basically 45 minutes behind each other. Going where? Beijing, from LA, Beijing. Yeah. Okay. It's just, that's just kind of bizarre to me, but anyway. And another topic too that I wanted to just touch on briefly is, Kat, did you guys see the news about Cathay Pacific and masks in first and business class?
I did.
What do you guys think of this? I mean, it makes sense on the face, but then at the same time, it goes against everything that they've been telling people, like wear your mask. I mean,
I'm trying to figure out what part of on the face, other than a mask, where it makes sense. Yeah. So to back up a half step, the rule is if you're in business or first class, you don't have to wear your mask while you're sleeping, right, on the long haul flights. Now, let's start with that's only 3 flights a week or something like that, because Cathay Pacific has cut back so much. It's a few more than that, but Cathay Pacific route network is tiny right now.
I think it's while you're asleep and your seat has to be fully reclined.
Yeah. And so I guess you could argue that if the seat is fully reclined, you're maybe breathing into the pillow or into the wall and rather than up into the air. I don't know, unless you sleep on your back. I don't think the mask rules are what are making people not travel, and I think it's a stupid way to approach the situation.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying is it kind of makes sense. It makes sense because in business and first, you're probably further from each other than you are.
Yeah, there's some spacing, but
it's still in business class, right? Like when in the business class seats, you're still kind of close to each other. Like you're not 10 feet away.
But how full are these cabins, right? If you look at most international flights, the premium cabins are mostly empty.
True. I think all the cabins are pretty much empty.
Well, not domestically.
True. Yeah. But I guess why have rules for one set? Like Seth said, I don't think it's like attracting people to fly. Like, oh, I don't have to wear a mask on Cathay business class. Let me just get on a flight tomorrow. I'm like, no.
Or I'm definitely going to fly Cathay instead of other airline because I don't have to wear a mask. Like, honestly, thank you for advertising that that's your policy, because I don't want anything to do with you or the airline that you're flying on.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go down this terrible rabbit hole of all the different companies trying to offer certifications on how good airlines are at adhering to health standards. But that's a different mess.
I mean, it's really no different than like airlines offering $50 tickets, right? During the next few weeks, like Alaska or United, like encouraging people to get on a plane. Probably not the right thing to do. We get it. You got to make money though. So, and although I don't know how $50 fares are making you money. Anyway, new Mint Suite, Seth.
I'm a fan.
It looks nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's some concerns about it. So this is, I mentioned Thomson Aero before. It's their product. The Vantage Solo is the name of the seat. And JetBlue is going to be the launch customer. It's going to be on the new A321neo Mint planes and the A321 LRs, which are the London flights, which will happen at some point this summer, probably. Q3-ish. It's nice. It's like a 45-degree angle offset. So that's an interest. It's very angled, right? I mean, that's... some people confused or uncomfortable questioning how that's going to feel, especially during takeoff and landing. And then it's narrow because all seats are, to make sure that there's enough room to bed. There's some angles at which it looks pretty narrow, but it also looks like it's a nice big screen. There's some nice options in because of the way the angle is set up. If you can imagine, everybody's sort of, herringboned in, whatever, but the front row is, you can have the full triangle, not just the line. And they've, rather than taking that space and making it into galley or closet or whatever, they've given that space to the seats. Supposedly going to be an upcharge of some sort, but sold as a regular business class seat, I think, right? So same fare class, but a different upcharge, and they haven't quite figured out the details yet. And they also, remember that they sort of said they might try that with the throne seats on the original Mint planes. This time I think they actually will, though. And it's going to be like an interesting product. They're calling it the Studio Suite, the Mint Studio Suite, something like that. And they actually are putting a sort of an extra little chair or seat in with a second seat belt. So you can invite a guest to come join you in your suite to dine together or watch TV together. Dual headphone jacks, which is a smart touch, right? So you can share the audio. They were very clear, though, from the beginning. You can only invite another Mint passenger to join you. You can't have someone from Coach come up. So
they've clearly been looking at Flyer Talk over the last 10 years. I
thought it was. I do feel like that's like the sort of attention you want to pay, sort of detail you want to pay attention to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a fairly nice seat. I think you're right. The offset of the seat is a little strange. And it faces the aisle, like your feet are in the aisle. You don't face the windows.
Right.
And I generally don't like that. Like I'm trying to think who I flew. Maybe it was Virgin Atlantic. That they face
yep.
their feet face. And I wasn't a huge fan. It felt like I had to like really reach to see out the window. Whereas when I'm facing the window, I can kind of move my head a little bit and get a better view. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just me.
My counterpoint to that is always, yes, I'm facing the window, but I'm also like 2 feet away from it, so it's really hard to see out.
True.
Or you can see out, but not down.
Yep.
I don't know.
But I always feel you have a little more privacy looking towards the window rather than looking to the aisle.
Yeah, like because your kind of like back is to the aisle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
See,
your back and everyone else's back.
I really don't like having my back to people. If I'm sitting in a restaurant, I want my back against a wall, not facing the wall. Because I want to see everybody around me.
Are you secretly a mobster?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Did you see there's a headline on, I think, the New York Post this week? Does the Long Island Railroad have a mafia problem?
Yes.
No, I missed that. So I mean, it looks nice. I'll be interested to see what they price it as. This is going to be on the London route, right? Like that's the prediction. Right?
No, it's confirmed. They have said that's the seat.
And will they? You think they'll rotate this into Mint routes that are domestic at all?
So so there's the two different types of planes. The 321neo is a regular Mint layout, and it'll have 16 seats on board, 2 suites and 14 other, and then the LRs have 24, 22 and 2. But both of them will do it. So they'll both have. It was a weird turn of phrase. Actually, the CEO mentioned in the earnings call like the week before they announced this that both aircraft would have the same seat, which I picked up on, and that was a fun story to write. But then from there, they confirmed it and then announced that this is the seat for both planes. So the old Mint will still exist and fly as it is. Then the new Mint will actually launch domestically first because the first Neo is being delivered before the first LR. And they're expecting that to start flying JFK LA in June, and then the Neo to start flying Q3 to London.
Okay, very interesting. Foz, you gonna take one of these when JetBlue starts it?
I haven't even taken the existing Mint product yet.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not for 7 years, dude. That's okay.
I rarely have an interest to go to JFK. And
that's true. And you said now they started at Newark United just match prices.
Let's see here. Boeing is making another attempt at NMA aircraft.
Ish.
Kind of. Sort of.
They need to. They're talking again. It'll be interesting to see what comes. There was some news that it's probably not the NMA. It's more like the 757 replacement, which was supposed to be the NMA, so I don't really know. But at one point there was some talk about a joint venture Boeing had with someone to make APUs, which is like the extra spare engine that sits inside the tail cone, powers the airplane, electronics and stuff. And when you're over water, it can be used to restart the actual engines if one of them fails. That partnership was predicated on the NMA program sort of taking flight, and that partnership has been disbanded or suspended at least. So there's some question about what the new plane is going to be, but there are, as we get every so often, the cyclical nature of this industry, there's rumblings that Boeing really is going to try to do something again. It's the latest. How do we bring back? I think the last time we tied the NMA, it was sort of like the weird oval-shaped sort of twin aisle 767 replacement, and now we're back to maybe a 757 replacement. But who the hell knows? Along those lines, I do think it's interesting that Boeing keeps talking about, and just like the same fuselage with maybe new engines or something like that, and trying to sort of incrementally go after fuel efficiency gains. Where Airbus is like, we got these other planes, they're doing fine, but let's see if we can make something out of it that runs on hydrogen in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It's a very different approach to the market, which I think in the next decade we're going to see it's going to be fun to watch it shake out.
Yeah.
But has the ship sailed at this point for Boeing? Is it worth their time, given that most of the carriers who've been using that size plane have already signed up for the XLR?
I don't think it's quite that many. I think there still is room in the market. Also, okay, so they're going to skip that and do what?
Maybe stabilize the existing product line?
Nah.
Yeah. I honestly, I would say they're better off pushing forward with a new airplane that actually has step change improvements at some level versus the 787 is fine, other than the fact that it has terrible production problems from South Carolina, which is where they're moving all the production starting this year. But other than that, it's great. The 777X, we don't really know what's going to happen for a few years yet, but the 777 itself has been a strong and reliable airplane. 747 is done. The 767, unless you're buying freighters or tankers, is done. And the 737 MAX, there are definitely questions around how long that's going to continue to be a strong seller versus maybe it's time to replace that. Depending on your position and what you believe in the market, that's where I would say, replacing that more quickly, yes, it costs money, but at this point, that program is already, the tens of billions of dollars in costs that they've had to charge against it. You sort of have to decide that that's done. You're never going to make that all up in profit again. So, why do you keep pouring money down those versus deal with the fact that you've got this several thousand, they've still got a few thousand backlogged orders on the MAX. Let those run out and have something new some years down the line around the time when that backlog runs out to be ready to convert people to is the alternate.
I guess you risk pissing off your airline customers because they bought into a product line expecting this would be the current for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they also probably expected it not to crash and kill people for fun. So
Details.
I'm just saying. And they expected it to not have to require training for extra sim training for the pilots. And yeah, there were a lot of expectations that probably weren't met. Right?
They've got to win back, right? Some customer trust. I think, is really it. And
that's a good way to phrase it. Thank you for being much more eloquent than my.
No. I mean, but I think that's really the problem that they're facing, right? You've got to convince customers out there to say, we want to go with you and we'll stick with you in whatever you're going to develop next. And maybe that's the 77X. Maybe it's just whatever this NMA airplane is, but really, I mean, I think that they have to look at the short haul. You got a whole fleet of 737, 800s, 900s, NGs. Let's just say NGs out there that are eventually going to have to be replaced, and the Max really isn't the plane necessarily for all those.
I mean, the early NGs are already coming out end of life, right? You figure the United ones, or some of them are over 22 years old.
Yeah, and I don't know that United wants to put a Max on all those routes, especially right now. Right, that bomb, the A220 is looking really good.
Well, right now the advantage United has is they have enough planes that are parked.
Yeah. That's the upside. So,
I should also throw in there, just while we're talking about Boeing product lines, there was a slide from a presentation today that included the 777X-10.
Oh, interesting.
Which previously only the 8 and the 9 had been really talked about.
Did they give any details?
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, you're such a tease.
They're going to get the extra seats by making them thinner, so it'll be 11 across.
Put them on the wing.
Hello, I'd like indoor seating, please.
So I'm gonna skip around because we're running short on time. But American Airlines has announced Miami, Tel Aviv. Because Tel Aviv doesn't have nice enough beaches, I guess. I don't know. What's the reasoning?
So Miami doesn't have nice enough beaches? Which one do you like more?
Which one?
No, there's a lot of traffic. It's actually an LL route also.
That's
there has
right.
been historically some good volumes of traffic in the market. And now that American has decided to go back to Israel again, right? US Air had briefly had the Philadelphia service that never worked, but American had announced JFK service this summer and now is adding the Miami. I think it's 3 days a week.
Wow. Do you think, with COVID, it'll be, a success? Or, Israel's doing a much more effective job at vaccinating their population.
But Florida isn't.
Yeah, so, I don't know that
this isn't one of those situations where you can just balance it out and say, halfway. Whatever. We'll all get there eventually. This isn't going to last forever. But it will be interesting to see how that market does. Clearly the market exists, and like everything else right now, announce some good markets that you think have potential and then see if you actually launch them when the time comes.
Allegiant, new routes. Seth, you posted this today from Ed Russell, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're starting LAX.
You're really excited about the LA Shreveport, aren't you?
Yeah, LA Shreveport it's got my name written all over it.
For you, actually, you got Portland Grand Rapids. They added another new Portland route.
Oh, I'm so excited. Grand Rapids, Michigan?
Yeah, they run a mini hub out of there. It's like a crew base, I think.
I actually have friends that live there. That actually could work.
It seems like, wait a minute, this is a whole weird episode where you make a flippant remark and then you have to actually find out that you're correct.
But would you fly Allegiant?
Well, I've already talked about flying them on these random Portland routes. So
but those are short.
Short 1 hour hops, not 3 hours to the middle of Michigan.
Yeah, maybe I'll give it. Like I said, I'll go anywhere at this point.
LA isn't a nonstop, right? That's the thing. LA Indianapolis is on the map. There was another one. There's a bunch of interesting ones out there. They've got 9 routes that they're going to run special for Sturgis, the Sturgis rally in August. Which someone joked, how do you check your Harley?
Yeah, no. So because Sturgis went so well this past year.
Yeah. If you want to be part of the super spreader event, you got to be there. Got to be in it to win it. Something like that. As is always the case with Allegiant, a eclectic and random sort of collection of routes that always looks interesting and makes you go, huh. And then you remember they fly them twice a week, super low frequencies, relatively low fares. They sell a lot of vacation packages, so they're getting the commission on the hotel rates. And, people tend to the people who like them because it's a nonstop between secondary markets. Like LA to Indianapolis may be the largest market to largest market route they fly. I'd have to figure out a way to look that up, but it seems like it's got to be up there.
Yeah, and for people that just want the easy, I just want to take it nonstop. I don't want to connect.
Yeah.
I mean, makes plenty.
I mean, it's 2 or 3 hours on the plane. You get on, you sit in your seat, you shut up, you get there. Right? Like, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Are they flying to Rapid City for Sturgis?
They do have a Rapid City on here. I'm just looking at the map. I can't remember. This is Ned's map that I don't think has all of them. St. Cloud, Minnesota to Valparaiso, Florida. That's a fun one. Bangor, Maine to Fort Lauderdale. McAllen, Texas to... I don't even know. I can't tell on the map which one it goes to. Maybe Nashville?
Does anyone at Delta know that they lost their dartboard?
Right? Yeah, Portland to Grand Rapids, I think, is the new longest route on the map for them. Slightly longer than LA, Indianapolis, I think, just by looking at it. But
wow.
Let me tell you. Sorry, you asked me about Sturgis, and I got the press release here. Let me scroll down and find the details. To Rapid City for Sturgis. They're going to fly to Appleton, Wisconsin, Indianapolis, Peoria, Illinois, Nashville, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Grand Rapids, Sanford, Florida, which is Orlando, Knoxville, Tennessee, and Punta Gorda.
Oh, okay.
Key West to Cincinnati.
Oh man, that's random stuff.
If you want routes, if you want lines, though, these are the guys to go to.
It's almost
San Diego to Pasco.
It's almost like we're going back to the routes of regulation.
Yeah, the cab days.
Yeah,
except they're not hops; they're not milk runs.
True.
Ooh, Portsmouth to Nashville.
Uh-oh.
Nashville's great. I like Nashville.
Do you?
Yeah. I had some really good meals. I had a project I was working down there for a while, and actually my current customer's based there, so this would be an excuse to get them to get someone else to pay for me to go visit. I had some great meals in Nashville.
But how far are you from Portsmouth?
15 minutes to the airport.
Oh,
it's like further. Nah, Portsmouth is super, super close. I flew out of there on Frontier down to Florida back in the day, but yeah, the problem is all we get is Allegiant, so it's usually like in Punta Gorda or Myrtle Beach or badly timed flights to Sanford usually.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Let's see. We'll do one more topic. There's a Dodge Neon. Jalopnik had a post about a Dodge Neon being used as a baggage tug. And this was in Thunder Bay, it looks like.
Yeah, it's Northern Canada.
Bearskin Airlines. They just like ripped the top off of a Dodge Neon and made it a baggage tug.
Got to put a hitch on the back too for the trailer, but yeah.
How do you go wrong with that?
The comment was basically they're disposable. It costs like $500 to buy one and do it. And if it breaks, you just buy another one versus buying a tug, which is an expensive piece of machinery.
Yeah.
So, also, waste not, want not.
Yeah,
and it has heat, I'm sure.
Which the tug would not.
Exactly.
I mean, to be fair, they took a sawzall and cut the roof off, so the heat is less effective.
But it's still like driving a convertible, right? When you're not willing to accept that winter's here, you put the top down, put the heat on.
These are not problems I have.
just running the heat no matter what. Let's see. I think that's a show, guys. I think we
should probably cut ourselves off.
Yeah,
but I am curious. Did they cut the Neon themselves?
I think they had someone do it for them.
Because if you're running an aircraft maintenance facility, you've got all the material and hardware you need to make those cuts.
That's true.
Right? Like, I mean, trimming the aluminum off the plane skin, you got to have spare snips somewhere, or a sawzall. I mean, shit, in my basement, I probably have the tools to do it. Not well, but I could do it.
Seth's like, hire me.
Looking at this picture, I don't think they did it well to begin with, so...
Well, there's that.
So, when you get really bored, you can go to the junkyard, buy some old beaters, and start converting into luggage carts for Portsmouth and Bangor.
There you go. Bangor's far away, actually.
Traveling salesman.
Yeah, Portsmouth I could do. There was someone pointed out to me there was an old little baggage tug, but it's like like the tiny Japanese pickup trucks, like with the sort of very low but open beds. Southwest apparently has a bunch of them at Love Field, and there's one for sale, still in like the Southwest paint job.
Really nice.
Yeah, apparently they're not street legal everywhere. Although then I was driving around here and I actually saw a similar truck on the side of the road, so I'm pretty sure they are because it's New Hampshire. Because live free or die. You got a seatbelt in that thing? Sort of. You're good to go, son. Again, not Southern. I don't know why I keep going there.
Live free or paralyzed.
Exactly. But it's surprisingly expensive, actually. So I'm super excited for it. And they top out at like 30 miles an hour, which isn't so useful for the 45-mile drive I need to take to get to my lumberyard.
It takes you an hour and 15 minutes to get there.
Yeah, it's like 40 minutes normally, and if I had to double that, I would be disappointed. As would everybody else behind me on the road.
Well, to our listeners, Thanks for listening to us. You can find us on Twitter at DotsLines, more.smorelines.com. We're going to have an after show after this. We're going to be talking about none of it, Rolls-Royce and American Airlines some more. So, yeah, if you want to stick
all
with us. All
things that should really have Foz riled up. This will be fun.
So, thanks, and till next time, happy travels.
Take care.
And because Stephen wasn't quite clear, that after show is available to you if you're a Patreon subscriber, which you can find us on Patreon or follow it from our website and get access to that. And we'll see you later.